Electric Cafe.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Electric Cafe. In this video, I'll be reviewing the 1993 album by Jeff Mills called Waveform Transmission, Volume 1. And this is actually a CD that I don't own. This is the first time I've reviewed a Jeff Mills album on my channel, so I figured I'd go with Volume 1, his first album back in 1993. Jeff Mills, legendary DJ, known as the Wizard, used to do radio DJing in Detroit in the early 80s. You know, and he was very well known, and he's still well known for his excellent mixing. And back in those days, he was mixing everything from industrial to disco to electro to techno, and really made his name for himself on radio. And then he was actually part of this group called Final Cut on Network Records, and that's where I first heard his music in I think it was like 1990 or 91. When I first heard Final Cut, and so his name sounded familiar, and then I looked further, and then just around 92 I found Trezor Records, and then he started on Trezor Records with X101, X10, I think X102 and X103. I think he was part of those. I always get mistaken if he was part of X102, but I think he was part of all three. But then he started his albums and some of his singles on Trezor, and then he's well known for his labels, Access Records and Purpose Maker, also Tomorrow Records. He's very well known for his Every Dog Has Its Day series. I have a couple copies of his Exhibition DVD, which came out in 2002, which was kind of a groundbreaking DVD at the time for showing a DJ play live on a DVD. And it sounds kind of silly now when you think of like all the social media and everybody DJing online and things like that. But back in 2002, this was like the first DVD that was kind of showed a DJ mixing live with records, and for Jeff Mills to be the one to do it kind of took him to another level, and thankfully it was him, because he is, in his own way, he is an excellent DJ. And he's recorded music under his own name. He was part of the Underground Resistant, again the X series, H&M, Servo Unique, Mills Art, and just a very forward-thinking artist who's really into sci-fi music. Everything he does has a really like an alien sound to it, an alien feel to it. Track number 1 is called Phase 4. I really like the use of live effects in this track. It sounds like he's playing the track live. If you know Jeff Mills, he's well known for drum programming using the 909 live in his DJ sets, and also his ability to do that just in general. Very good at programming drum beats live. And this track kind of Phase 4, the first track, it does that a lot. It does a good job of that, and you can feel the bass moving in and out, and getting deeper, and the filters moving, and again it's very aggressive. And that's the great thing about understanding techno. If you don't know the history of techno, and you want to know why a lot of old school people like myself really like the old school techno and like a lot about it, is because it's so aggressive and so dynamic and so punk feeling, and it's so against the system, and it's not dance friendly, and it makes you think, and it's sci-fi related, or it's theme related, and it's dangerous, and it's not everyday. Not everybody's gonna like it, and I think that's one of the cool thing about it. It's not welcoming in some ways. It can be very exotic. It can be very frantic. It can be very dark. It can be very happy at times too, but it's not for everybody. And there's a rawness to it about early techno that people that grew up with it, like myself, really find it very special times. And I don't know if those times will quite ever go back, although everything seems to come in a loop, right? There was a time just a few years ago where it seemed like harder techno was going to come back a little bit more on the popular side, and it kind of didn't do it, because I don't think a lot of the new generation really likes faster techno, harder techno, or. But I mean, when you listen to track one, it sounds. I mean, this album in a way sounds very dated. But if you grew up through it, it doesn't sound dated. It's just because I went through it. But really cool track, Phase 4, one of my favorite tracks on the album. Track 2, Jericho, solid. A lot of times Jeff has tracks that have this kind of incessant sound on it, and it becomes the hook of the track. Sometimes it's a really annoying track. I mean, or an annoying sound, or at least verging on it. But when it's done with such aggressive techno, it totally works with it. It's this frantic kind of dangerous techno sound where it just sounds like nothing else. And that was kind of the time a lot of producers were finding sounds that have never been heard before, have never been reproduced before, and were new to putting into music, right? That was the other exciting thing about techno. When you think of like the Hoover sound, or you think of like something as simple as like bells on an 808, or you know, any kind of, there's so many different sounds. A lot of them necessarily didn't have names, but it's just synonymous with like rave and techno and breakbeat and hardcore music during that time. A lot of the producers were using sounds that nobody ever heard before, and that was the really what made electro or electronic music, have this like uh, almost like unreal kind of uh, attention or popularity, or gaining in popularity. It just was unrivaled because it was just, I think people were, especially younger people, younger people are always looking for newer music, right? And when you have the advent of electronic music kind of coming into its own at the time, and then all these crazy music sounds that had never been heard before, and then on top you're putting samples on it from movies, and you're just taking it to the extreme, that's all the reason why rave music was so powerful back then and so original. And when you hear, music like track number 2, Jericho, and these sounds that are so abrasive, and so that's when you have to put yourself in those times where techno was so aggressive. And I can understand how people that are younger, like, they may not like this type of techno because it's not. I wouldn't say it's not well produced, but it's not friendly. It's not warm sounding. It's not basic sounding. It's definitely like of the period, but again, if you grew up through it sounds pretty natural. But that's just how a lot of the techno was. But a lot of the tracks, the way he mixes the tracks and the sounds, they almost sound like there's songs. It's almost like the way he mixes tracks, or the way people mix techno in general, especially in the '90s, is, there's that's kind of the way this track sounds, is there's kind of sounds kind of morphing into each other, and so it almost feels like there's two tracks mixing. And this is why his tracks go so well together when you mix them. Case in point with Exhibition. In Exhibition, there was I think 3 mixes on here, but 2 of them were pretty much just tracks from his label. Access mix, Purpose Maker mix, and then there was a 3rd mix where he started to use other tracks from other people. But when you think of like the Access mix and the Purpose Maker mix, the tracks go so well together. Not only because he's a great mixer, not only because they're probably mastered and they're pressed in the same plant, and some of them were done by the same producer, but there's such a sound to those, and such a feel to those, where they go so well together when mixed. And that was another highlight of that mix, especially if you like Jeff Mills stuff. I mean, if you like Jeff Mills stuff, the Exhibition stuff is works so well together. Track number 3, Changes of Life. Probably the strangest track on this album. In some ways, it doesn't even sound like Jeff Mills. It's by far his weakest on this album. It's kind of old school sounding, but it sounds like something from 1991, not really from 1993. And you gotta put yourself in those years where music is moving so fast, and what sounded good 3 months ago was not necessarily hip anymore. And so, there was also the overground of gaining steam of sounds, and what was new last week was, not necessarily new anymore. And genres are changing so fast. New genres were being introduced, and Changes of Life on here sounds like it's from 1991. It doesn't sound like it's from 1993. And maybe there is some humor in there, but no, considering it's Jeff Mills, he's generally doesn't put humor into his music. He's pretty serious about his music and how futuristic it sounds. So it's strange that Changes of Life is on here because it sounds like something from XO1 or maybe even somebody else. It doesn't quite seem. It almost seems like kind of a joke of a track. Actually, it sounds way out of place. It's like you stepped into the main club in 1991 in Trezor, and then you came back out and you went listen to something else. But it's almost like you went back a couple years. Change of Life does not fit on this album at all, and it's kind of one of the weakest moments and one of the weakest Jeff Mills tracks I've ever heard, to be honest with you. And that's saying a lot considering this is 1993 and these tracks all sound fairly dated for the time, dated now, but of the period now. But the rest of the album works really well. Track number 4, called Berlin, nice builder, hypnotizing, really good stuff. And then track number 5, called Hacker, a bit of experimental in here, minimal. Some of the sounds are kind of muted within other sounds, and just really kind of clever drum programming in here. Hacker's really strong as well. I like Late Night even better. In many ways, Jeff Mills was so ahead of his time at drum programming. You can really hear it. You can really get a taste of it in this track called Late Night. Jeff Mills really favors the changes than going full minimal in this time, and just really in general throughout the 90s. He doesn't really stay with the minimal. He definitely likes tracks to change, although they are still kind of a minimal techno. It's not your usual minimal techno when you think of like Juan Atkins, like Infinity stuff, or again like Terrence Dixon, or DBX, or Robert Hood, especially. Like, he still favors a lot of changes, but again, this is still minimal in his own way. And again, Jeff Mills is pretty excellent at building tracks and how they evolve. Track number 7, DNA, definitely a minimal banger, heady, deep. This is a great example of how hypnotic techno can be. Track number 7, DNA, sick. Man Likes, another deep banger for sure. One of my favorites on the album. As far as my overall thoughts on the album, album is so raw. It's a bit frantic, but it's dangerous. It's eerie at times, definitely aggressive, heavily rhythmic, verging on loop-based techno. The loop-based techno started coming around in like 96, 97, maybe even 95. This might be a precursor to that, but still, in these days, still more sci-fi themed. When you listen to an album like this, especially with Jeff Mills at the helm, you can just kind of like strap yourself in and put on the headphones and just get taken away. Just strap yourself in for the ride, because he's going to take you on a trip, and you just enjoy it. It's definitely more for hardcore lovers on this album, techno lovers, than just your average techno. If you're into newer techno and you don't like older techno, you probably wouldn't like this album. It's fairly groundbreaking for the time. Perhaps now the sounds are a bit dated, but for the time, I think it was groundbreaking. Maybe, again, to new fans, it might sound kind of thin, maybe one-dimensional. Doesn't quite have the power of new techno, and I get it. Newer. That's the thing with a lot of producers these days. They can make really powerful sounds, but they can't really make good rhythms. And it evolved really well. That's one of the issues that I have with a lot of newer techno producers. Here, might sound dated to some people, but you can't question that some of the best techno sounds like songs, because they're so good at evolving techno, and that was one of the hallmarks. And I think one of the ways that a lot of producers that went through the 80s and early 90s, and Detroit techno especially, they were good at evolving tracks. And I think that came from the instruments and how they recorded, and just the evolution of studio engineering a techno track, and not just placing a track like now seems like a lot of producers do nowadays, with just kind of like placing sounds. But I think if you're an old school techno fan, this is what I'm sure you probably already know this album, but I'm sure you would like this album. The only drawback for me with Jeff Mills' music in general, although especially back in, although I feel like he's gotten better as the years go on, especially as he's more adapted to doing like ambient albums and things like that, and again sci-fi themed album. He's always been good with sounds and evolving rhythmics and using experimental sounds, very sci-fi again. But kind of the drawback on this album for me is the melody. It's just lacking a lot of melodies for me. And I love melody in techno. And that's generally why Jeff Mills isn't in my upper echelon of Detroit techno producers, because I do feel like I generally like more your Carl Craig melody, your Juan Atkins melody, your Kenny Larkin melody, John Belcher melody, Detroit Escalator Company melody. Like I generally like the more melodic Detroit techno. But if you like sci-fi, and I certainly do like sci-fi, and I really like the experimental side of techno, you're going to like Jeff Mills, I think, for that. But he does evolve over that, especially as maybe after like 2007, 2010, like Jeff Mills started to do again some ambient albums, and I think he's evolved more into doing themed albums and not so much music for the club. And in some ways, he kind of lost a little bit of the aggressiveness a little bit, but gained some more deepness. When I think of artists like this that are aggressive still in techno in the 90s, but have a little bit more melody and are very similar to Jeff Mills, but I like a little bit better. I think of like James Ruskin, maybe Kari Lekabush, Surgeon. I like those artists maybe a little bit better than Jeff Mills, although I highly respect Jeff Mills for his talents and, again, his drum programming, his his excellent DJing, very mechanical DJing, but very aggressive and just very talented producer and DJ. Maybe the only other drawback about Jeff Mills on this album and maybe in general is that his tracks are a little bit on the shorter side. A lot of times they're 4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. I generally like my techno 6 to 8 minutes, so they evolve more and are deeper. But when you think of Jeff Mills and more aggressive techno like this, 4 to 5 minutes is pretty natural. It's fine, but it's just kind of a personal preference. I like a little bit longer tracks. And when there's only 8 tracks on here, I would like them to be a little bit longer, so the album is a little bit longer. Still a very good album, though, overall. A really good example of aggressive techno in 1993, pushing the boundaries, aggressiveness, dark techno, theme techno that makes you think, techno that takes you to another planet. This is the kind of listening techno, again, where you just put on your headphones and just kind of go along for the ride, and Jeff Mills just takes you to another world. I'd love to know your thoughts on Waveform Transmissions Volume 1 from 1993 by Jeff Mills. You'll see my scores on each track. You'll see how I rate tracks down below in the notes section. If there's something you'd like me to review for a future video, just message me. Again, my email is also down below. Yeah, let's check out Jeff Mills, Waveform Transmissions Volume 1.
Waveform